Well, welcome to this week's Time Out Tuesday, which is called You're Never Gone Too Long. Last week, I spent a delightful afternoon with a friend I had not seen in years. We had lunch and then went to her home and we talked for most of the afternoon. She and her husband were friends of ours for many years. I did not know what happened, but a distance grew between us. And well, then there was COVID. And then her husband became very ill. And because his immunity was compromised, he could not be around people. Now, he and I continued to communicate via an email chain that he would send out each week. And I would always ask how she was doing, but she and I did not communicate for years. One day, she did call to let me know that he had passed on to his home in heaven. And much later on, she called to apologize for staying away for so long. I also apologized to her for not trying harder to stay connected, and we forgave each other quite easily. It still took a long time for us to schedule that lunch, not because of any problems. She was mourning and adjusting, and I was busy helping with my grandchildren and my work at church, and life just kept moving on. Well, despite all that, we did finally meet for lunch, and it felt natural, and the time was very sweet. The same thing can happen with our relationship with God. Sometimes we drift away slowly. Other times we make choices that take us far from Him. Days can turn into months, and months can turn into years. And after a while, we may begin to wonder, have I been gone too long? Would God even want me back? Well, Jesus answered that question with the familiar parable of the prodigal son. The son had asked his father for his inheritance, which by Jewish tradition was always given after the father had died. He then left home and wasted it all. Eventually, when all his money was gone, he realized how far he had fallen, and he decided to return home, expecting nothing more than to be treated like a servant. But his father, well, he had a very different response. Verse 20 of Luke chapter 15 tells us that while the son was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. That one verse tells us something beautiful about God. The father wasn't standing at the door with his arms crossed, waiting for his son to explain himself. He saw him coming from a distance. He had to have been looking for him every day. And he ran to him, embraced him, and welcomed him home. For a man to run, he would have to have pulled his robes up so he wouldn't trip. This would have been humiliating for him. But this father, he didn't care. His son was coming home and nothing was going to keep him away. Jesus gave us this parable so we could understand our Father's heart towards us. Maybe you haven't prayed for a long time. Maybe your Bible's been closed for months or even years. Maybe disappointment or grief or anger or busyness or choices that you now regret have created a distance between you and God. You may feel far from Him, but you are never too far to come home. God does not say, you stayed away too long. He doesn't say, you should have come back sooner. All He says is, come. As a matter of fact, He is waiting just for you. The wonderful thing about returning to God is that you don't have to clean up yourself first. The prodigal son came home dirty, broken, empty-handed. His father welcomed him just as he was, and the same is true for you. and me. And that, my friends, is this week's Time Out Tuesday. And I do hope to see you all next week. God bless you all.